Hey Mikey, we need to do a segment for Doublethink. There's actually an interesting one in this. It's about those bloody immigrants.
Hello, welcome to Doublethink, a new politics show by UEA TV in which we attempt to break down and discuss politics for a younger audience.
Over the next 4 shows, we want to take a number of key topics and try and give a kind of breakdown for you so you can get a kind of understanding of what's going on. But as always, we'll start with our opening segment, You Can't Make This Shit Up.
Right, so I wanted to, since this is a Brexit themed show after all, start by talking about a monumental fuck-up that has been happening between the government and Eurotunnel.
Exciting.
So some of you may not even know this, but the government has been awarding contracts to companies to manage shipping in and out of Dover in the case of a no-deal scenario. The BBC learned that the contract had been given to a company called Seaborne Freight. This company was awarded £13.8 million for this contract. However, incredibly, a BBC investigation found out this company owned, well, James, tell me, guess how many ships you think this company may own? It's called Seaborne Freight.
Seaborne Freight,
Yes.
It sounds pretty interesting. 13.8 million was that?
Yeah.
I'm
Just
gonna
how
say
many ships?
A few, like maybe a couple hundred, a couple of thousand.
Thinking lower.
50,
Lower still.
20.
Okay, it was basically like, it was zero. Zero ships. Anyway, more to this. It turns out that Eurotunnel, so the service that runs the Channel Tunnel trains, were not even included in the discussions. So the government basically chose to ignore a company that had the means to move the freight and instead award it to a company who had no means of moving freight at all. Eurotunnel are now looking to go through litigation against the government. So the government has set aside £800,000 of taxpayers' money in order to pay a law firm's legal fees for the case that they get sued. So let's just put this in perspective again. £800,000, how many uni students do you reckon that could send to university?
I'm hoping quite a few, that sounds quite a lot.
30. We'll send 30 students. Okay, in other news, the Brexit department spent £45,637 printing copies of Theresa May's EU deal, which, didn't make it through Parliament. So 1,300 copies. So we're now up to £845,637 of wasted money.
Fantastic.
You can't make this shit up.
What a great way to start.
Literally can't make it up.
Right, so now on to our next segment.
Yeah, so we're going to be trying to do a Brexit breakdown. We're going to try and take 3 topics and explain them so that they make sense to everybody, really.
Kind of try and keep it fairly simple, fairly bite-sized.
Why don't you hit us off?
The first subject that we're going to go for this week is the second referendum. I feel like that's fairly relevant at the moment, considering it seems like there's a lot of confusion around Brexit.
There's a lot of no one's got no fucking idea what's going on.
No deal, bad deal. What is happening?
Yeah.
So my question for you is: would having another referendum undermine the first?
I mean, no, because I'm not going to rant here, but look. So having a second referendum, Theresa May had a deal in Parliament, and the issue is that she couldn't pass it because she didn't have the MP support. Having a second referendum could have sorted that. You could have had another referendum saying leave or remain, and if they had voted to leave, then the MPs would have had no choice but to choose May's deal and leave the EU.
Sure.
Well, the issue that we have here now is that we don't have any power to the people. We have power to the MPs. So we have extreme Brexiters on the right, who are saying, no, we have to leave with no deal because this is the best thing we have. We have people on the other side of that, left, who say we have to have a second referendum. So there's no unity in Parliament. So surely you would think, right, is the unity is to give it back to the people and have a proper vote.
Sure, I agree. So do you think that you can undermine democracy with democracy? Is that a thing?
No. I think you told me the other day, a referendum isn't legally binding in our constitution, is it?
Sure, no, it's not. It's kind of just like a big public opinion poll.
Yeah.
Although I would say to that, I have a follow-up question. Where does it stop? If a referendum is not legally binding and we can keep having more to pretty much come out with the result that we want to, surely that's kind of a snowball rolling down a hill.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, look, listen, we live in a democratic society. We have elections every 5 years. So every 5 years we're given a choice to change who we want in our power. So that means changing policy, that means changing where our money goes, those things. What's the difference with a referendum and Brexit? You could have arguably a Brexit referendum every 5 years and see where that takes you. But, people just hear it's going to cost a lot of money and that
Sure.
it is,
I think I'd like to just close on that one by saying that considering the initial campaign and all of the lies and everything, all the confusion, people didn't really know what they were voting for.
Yeah.
I think it's ridiculous to say that you couldn't that democracy would undermine democracy.
Right. So should we move on to what have we got next? Is it No Deal we got next?
No Deal. Would you like to kick us off?
I will, because I've been preparing fun facts.
How exciting! He's
About
been looking
No
forward
Deal.
to this for weeks.
The fun facts. Here we go. So, there's a lady called Annalie Howard. She's a she's an expert in EU competition law. She sits on the Brexit working group. She said that the recession that would happen after a No Deal Brexit would be worse than the one in the 1930s, worse than the one in 2008, and it could arguably last up to 30 years. So you're 23 now.
Yeah.
You'll be 53, arguably, before we're out of recession again.
Sure. That sounds pretty serious.
Yeah.
But
You would have like 20 kids by then.
is that just an estimation? What would you say to the fact that it was predicted that there would be a huge recession after the initial vote, which didn't happen?
Yeah, but we didn't leave the EU then. We had choice to have a deal, and the idea is that the deal would give us some sustainability,
Sure.
but a no deal would give us no sustainability. And I've got some fun facts on that too.
Please hit me with them.
So, Theresa May's government, this is your government, have estimated this, said that in 15 years' time, under a no deal scenario, the GDP would be 10.5% lower than if the UK had stayed in the EU. So let me give you the numbers on that. The GDP of the UK in 2018 was £2 trillion. So 10.5% of that is 200 billion, I think, around that.
Yeah.
So we'd lose 200 billion pounds to our economy.
It's quite a lot of money. I don't
It
feel like
is.
you can really ignore that.
Mhm.
I also read that under a no deal per household, we could find ourselves £6,000 down a year.
And finally, I just wanted to break down a really common misconception that you hear amongst Brexiteers, very, very hard Brexiteers like Jacob Rees-Mogg and, you know, these people. They talk about if we left with no deal, we could trade under what's called the World Trade Organization, or the WTO.
Yeah.
Now, in order for us to actually trade under that, you'd have to pass all 5,000 of its laws in our parliament.
Sure.
So that could take up to 7 years, some estimate.
7
And also,
years.
to pass those laws, you'd have to also get 167 members of the WTO to approve your request,
Right.
20 of which hate us.
So we should have started this 7 years ago.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're kind of heading blindly
Mhm.
into possibly a big mess.
Yeah. So those are the facts on no deal. Basically, no deal banned. Don't do it. Please don't.
Okay.
Please.
So Brexit. So on to our next topic, which is going to be about immigration. So
It's the big topic, isn't it, really? Like, it's the biggest topic in EU politics, UK politics right now, is are we going to retake control of our borders?
sure.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Is there an immigration problem in the UK?
Is there an immigration problem?
Yes. Really?
Personally, I don't think so. I think that
Really see you
Britain
say that? Yeah.
Britain is, we should pride ourselves on the fact that Britain is a melting pot, is a multicultural nation. And I can understand that a lot of people are worried about kind of cultural dilution, job security, infrastructure. That means that we can't take the number of immigrants that we
Yeah.
have at the moment. But the actual amount of money that is brought in by by immigrants every year is undeniable. And I think we should be proud of the fact that we appreciate people from different cultures, different values.
Let me ask you this. In like 20 words or less, what does it mean to be British?
20 words or less. Bad teeth, fish and chips.
Don't just say mean stereotypes. No, I'm basically asking, is there such an idea of British? Like, is there an idea of what it is to be British? Or are we defined by our multiculturalism or by our laws and things?
I think that there is such a thing as Britishness, and I think that part of that is the fact that we're a very tolerant and progressive nation.
Oh, interesting. You took a spin on it.
Yeah, and I don't
like
think
it.
that harking back to traditional British values of kind of lack of immigration and only speaking English is something that we should be coveting in such a progressive country.
Right, well, I hope that helps to everybody. But I think now it's time for our favourite segment. Do you want to...
Our next segment is going to be Bollocktics. Right, So after that Oscar-nominated introduction,
Terrible, terrible. We suck. I'm
here we
sorry.
have our segment Politics. And so the idea of this is that there's going to be 3 rounds, and in each round we'll read you 3 quotes. There's going to be 2 truths and 1 lie. We want you to see if you can guess which is the lie.
Sure.
Right, so our first one, quote number 1 from Liam Fox MP. A free trade deal with the EU would be the easiest in human history.
Okay.
Number 2 from Big Bojo, Boris Johnson himself.
Oh.
My policy on cake is pro having it and pro eating it.
Oh, yeah, mine too.
Theresa May, we need to be realistic about Brexit. This might be the biggest challenge that the youth of today will face in their lifetimes. So what do you think, Mikey?
Thinking, I'm going to say the cake one, Boris Johnson.
Is fake. It's a lie.
Yeah, it's probably a lie.
Well, I'd
Stereotype.
like to think that.
Oh,
because
no.
In fact, the final one by Theresa May, which seems quite reasonable, quite sensible. Yeah, no, that was my own.
Oh, great. Oh,
because
you wrote that?
I wrote that.
Wow, you should be Theresa May's speechwriter.
I feel
Right.
like Theresa May is maybe not so realistic about Brexit.
Okay, so the next 3 quotes I've got, they're all from Jeremy Corbyn. Labour is clear that we should remain in the EU, but we want to see reform. That was pre-campaign. We can't stop Brexit. That was the second. And if there was another election, I would vote to remain in the EU.
I'd like to think that the second was a lie, considering there seems to be
The second
a bit of
was
a contradiction.
the second being the we can't stop
We
Brexit.
can't stop Brexit.
Well, I'm afraid you're wrong. If there was, he said he doesn't know how he would vote.
Okay, that's fantastic. Okay, so on to round 3.
Final round.
We've got 2 from Big Bojo again.
Oh, Big Bojo.
He's
Yeah.
featuring heavily this week.
Here we go.
So Boris Johnson, voting Tory will cause your wife to have bigger breasts and increase your chances of owning a BMW. Seems nice and reasonable. Second, unemployment is at record low and manufacturing is booming in spite of Brexit. And finally, Jeremy Hunt, people should have the say on the terms of the UK's exit deal with the EU, and we should have another referendum.
I don't think Jeremy Hunt is a Remainer at the moment, so I'm going to say Jeremy Hunt is the lie.
Actually, all of them were true, would you believe it?
Oh,
Yeah,
what,
there's-
even the boobs one?
Even the boobs one.
Gross. Right.
Okay, so I
So
think that's brought
I
us
think
to
that might be the end of Doublethink for this week.
yeah. We have some exclusive footage.
Well, firstly, let's do social media.
Social
If you want to
media.
get in contact with us, we're on UEA TV's Facebook page and also our YouTube channel. Leave a comment, it helps, or like it. Like it, please like it.
We've obviously been covering some fairly contentious issues in a short space of time. So if
Let us
you
know if it was helpful.
yeah, if you've got anything to say, if we should cover anything, please let us know.
Right, and finally, I leave you on an exclusive piece of footage that UEA Doublethink received this week. People at the borders have taken to protecting our shores. Here's a look.
Alright guys, this is Tommy Robertson here, and I'm just out on the Norfolk coast, and I'm just protecting us from these immigrants. I'm just going to show you this beautiful British countryside. Look at that, look at that. Oh shit, there's one over there. Go